Hi everybody, welcome to Absolute Beginners, How to Draw. Our first lesson is about to start now. My name's Francine. I've been teaching art for about 5 or 6 years now. I went to art school about 100 years ago and I learned to draw in a very old school way. So what I'm going to do very quickly is just take you through a few basics to get you drawing. Often when we begin to draw, we think that we're looking at an item in front of us and we think that we can draw that. And then sometimes we get very disappointed because it doesn't look like the thing in front of us when we begin to draw it. So in fact, drawing is not just about manual dexterity, it's actually about learning to see. And I'm going to take you through a few exercises to help you do that. The thing about drawing is that we think that we're given a talent when we're born and that we can either draw or we can't. But in fact, we can all draw. It's just that we haven't been taught how to organize our thoughts and how to put it all together. If you think about it, you weren't born learning to drive or learning to cook. You might find that you have a slight propensity to playing the piano or being able to drive really well. But drawing is really about learning how to use your talents and your skills. So I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to swap to my other screen so that you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully you can watch this and draw as we go along. But if not, it'll be short enough that you can watch it again and draw afterwards. Okay, so I have, first of all, let's really get down to basics. I've got some cartridge paper here. Do try and get some cartridge paper. Cartridge paper is has a slightly rough texture. It's not like photocopying paper, which is quite smooth. Cartridge paper is usually just a little bit off-white. Here's a piece of photocopying paper, and hopefully you can see the difference between white photocopy paper and cartridge paper. So there's our first start. Then the other thing is, what kind of pencil do you use? We can pick up a pencil around the house, the one you use to write the shopping lists, or the same one that you have when you go to IKEA. They'll give you a free pencil, and that's usually an HB. If you can see that, I'm not sure. Now, pencils come in different grades. So you have HB, which is the one that I've just shown you. And then if you go off in this direction, you get a B, a 2B, right up to 9B. And as they go up the grade, the higher the number, the softer or also the blacker they get. The one I like to use is a 6B, which is this one. And you'll notice that if I do what I call a shade ladder here, I'm just tickling the paper, hardly touching it, just getting a bit of surface out of it, and then I'm releasing the pressure of it. That's an HB. Now this is a 6B, and you can see, I hope, I'm not pressing any harder. This comes out darker. And this is a lovely pencil to use, and I recommend that everyone gets one of those. You also get H pencils. B is for black and H is for hard, and H pencils go in this direction, and they get harder and harder and lighter, right up to, I think you can get a 9H, but goodness knows what you would do with it. But those are the pencils that architects and draftsmen use. But we're artists, so we're only going to worry about HB to 9B pencils. Okay, there's your pencil instruction over. I have got handouts for people, and if you email me, I can send you one. I'll give you my email address at the end of the session. Now, what I'd like you to do is to get hold of some very plain items. Now, the screen's going to go a little bit wobbly because I'm going to show you what I've got in front of me. I've got some very plain items. I've got a jug, a cup, a mug, a glass, and 2 bottles. So what I'd like you to do is to go and raid your kitchen cupboards and just find some very plain items. The reason that we choose plain items, like for instance this very plain white mug, is that if you have anything that has a flower design or spots or dots or lettering on it, then you're going to start looking at that and not at the shape. And what we need to do to start off with is just look at the basic shapes. So that was a mug. Now here's a jug, very basic. It's lovely, beautiful jug, no design on it, but just a lovely colour. And a nice round cup, still got the sticker on it because I went to the charity shop to buy these. Take these out of your cupboard and I want you to line them up. Now we're going to do something. We're going to do a little exercise, rather like a warm-up that an athlete might do. We're going to start drawing very, very quickly. When I say an athlete might do this, an athlete would never begin to run a marathon until they'd done their warm-ups. And in the same way, a singer wouldn't start to sing until they had done their scales and warmed up their voice. So we're going to do some warm-up exercises that are going to help you get your eye in. So I'm going to start off and I'm only going to take 15 seconds to draw each of these cups. And I want you to do the same in a moment. So all I'm going to do is, I'm just going to do that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, and so on. Okay, that took me probably less than 15 seconds. Okay, so I want you to pause the video now for a couple of minutes. I want you to go and find some cups and bottles. I want you to line them up and I want you to draw each one, but I want you to draw it so quickly. It may look a bit wobbly and that's perfectly all right. And then come back and put the video on again. Okay, so pause now for 2 minutes. Good, so I hope you've done that. You paused the 2 minutes and you drew a few items. Now it's quite possible, because I've been drawing for quite a while, that mine looks okay and yours might look a little bit more like this. Possibly, I might be being a bit rude. What often happens, we look at the comparison between this one and that one, is that when we see something round, we go into a bit of a headless chicken mode and we just think, oh my goodness, I've just got to draw something round, and we do this really wiggly circle. And then we think, okay, here are the sides, and oh, it's on a flat surface, so we do a flat surface. Oh, and it's got a handle, and we just do any old handle sticking out. Well, that's drawing what's in our head, because our brain has every single cup and mug and jug that we've ever seen in our lives stored in our brain. And our brain says, oh, don't worry about your eyes. It's okay. We're just going to draw anything that you've got there. And it brings out something from the back of your filing cabinet in your brain, and you just draw the nearest thing. And that's because you're not actually looking. You're thinking and you're drawing what you think you can see and not what you actually see. So what we're going to do is we're going to look more carefully. Now, the first thing that happens is that round wobbly shape. But in fact, if you look, I'm going to make the screen wobble. If you look at the angle of those cups, those mugs, you can't see that roundy shape at the top. Sorry, I'm going to get the angle right now so you can see. Okay. Can you see that that center mug has an elliptical shape at the top? And that cup has a rounder shape because it's a little bit lower down, and the jug has an ellipse as well. Okay. So what we're going to do is draw them as we really see them. So that mug in the middle has an ellipse that looks more like a squashed balloon. And that distance there is much shallower than perhaps you thought the first time. Now, this is the crucial bit. We'll get into proportion later on. This at the bottom, we so often draw that too flat. And I'll bet you, if you haven't done any drawing for a while, you'll have drawn that far too flat. Sometimes I go the other side just to remind myself that this is a round object. But the important thing is that this curve here and this one here must be the same angle. When you get that right, things will really start falling into place. You can see that if we look at our incorrect one, this looks as if it's tipping forward. We are thinking this is round and that we can see that, but we really can't. And because we've done the surface, the bottom flat, because it's sitting on a flat surface, it looks as if the whole thing is going to come forward and flop over. So there's the beginning. Now, handles, terribly important to look at the shapes in between. And I hope you can see that there is an angle between the corner of the handle and the top of the cup. And look at that distance between the bottom of the handle and the bottom of the cup. Often handles come down far lower than you thought. And just look at the width of this handle. I'm going to measure it. Do you see? I'm going to put the pencil there and measure it with my thumb, put my thumb there, and I'm going to go across and see, oh my goodness, it's more than half the width across there. Isn't that extraordinary? Would you have thought that? Probably not. So that tells us that we've got to get that angle there right. And this handle has to be more than half the width. So I'm going to just sketch it in, and it's got to come down quite low. Now, handles are a bit annoying because when you're drawing the top of it, you're looking at the top of the handle, and then it turns around the corner and suddenly flips, and you're looking at the inside, which is very, very annoying. All I can say is, and you can see my handle's a bit wobbly because I'm doing it, usually I can draw much better than that. You can see that the handle is turning inside out, if you like. But we've got a much bigger width there than we've probably had the first time round. So these are the things to look for. These angles here, they must curve up from your pencil. So what you can do is hold your pencil in front of you, or you can actually go right up to the cup, but you can hold it in front of you like this and just look at where the angle of the cup sits on your pencil. So you hold it out in front of your eyes, or actually hold it in front of the cup, and then check it on your paper like this and see if you've got a nice curve here, and check that that curve there matches that one. Oh, and one more thing that we often make a mistake doing is that when we do the ellipse, as I call it, at the top of the cup, we often do it rather pointed. Well, it's not pointed, it's like that. It's like a squashed balloon. So you could practice drawing squashed balloons while you're doodling one day, while you're waiting for the kettle to boil. So there's your first exercise, and hopefully you'll have done the cup and the jug as well. So I'm going to give you some hints on how to draw a jug. Now, it's possible that when you drew the jug, you got something probably, I'm going to be very rude, and you may have drawn something like that. this is terribly common thing that people do. I want you to think about the jug in the way that the potter made it. So when the potter was making this on the potter's wheel, they would be turning the wheel, wouldn't they? And while the clay was still malleable at the top, they would take their fingers and they would just pinch out that spout. And that's what I want you to do when you're drawing. So I want you to just ignore the spout to begin with. I want you to look at the basic shape of your jug. You may have a more curvaceous jug than I have. I've got a straight one, so off we go. I'll show you how I do it. So I'm going to just do my ellipse at the top, like a squash balloon. And then I'm going to draw the basic shape. If you find it difficult to get both sides symmetrical, sometimes it helps to draw a line down the middle. And if you're worried about drawing straight lines, just draw it very quickly and think about your destination, not the journey. So if you're in Edinburgh here, you're going straight to London. Just draw it like that, really quickly. Okay, so there's our basic jug. Now, I've got here a spout. So how am I going to do that? Right, I'm just going to follow the line and I'm going to put the spout on like that. We're not worrying about these lines here because at the moment we're just doing exercises, we're learning to draw. And quite honestly, if I was doing a proper drawing, I would probably do that exact same thing. And then I would, when I'm shading or putting the tone in, I would put it in afterwards. I'm going to put the handle in now. Now this handle is slightly different. As you can see, it comes straight out from the jug there. So I'm just going to follow that design. And it also comes fairly low down. So I'm going to put that in there and really look at the shape it makes in between. If you can hear some funny pattering in the background, there's a magpie on my roof of my studio. And he's pattering around and looking in the windows at me, in the skylights. Right, so there we are, we've got a jug. Now the next thing is to check that I've got this shape right. And you can, again, I want to use my pencil, and I'm going to put my pencil at the side. I hope you can see this okay. I'm going to hold it up like that. And just hold it up against the thing and look at where that point meets that. In this case, they're pretty similar. It's doing that. Okay, now that's really useful. And this is what we call looking at the shapes in between. I'm looking at the shape in between. Or another way of referring to it is the negative spaces. I'm going to put my pencil here just to check my angles. And I've got a negative space here that I think is correct here. And in this case, this jug is pretty flat across the top. If I hold my pencil, I've just got a little indentation there. Hope you can see that. Not very clear, is it? Yeah, okay. So that's what I want you to do, is to practice drawing very plain items. Here's a really plain little cup. I want you to make sure that your ellipses are oval and not pointed. I want you to look at the sides of the cup and Get those in, and then here the bottom must be rounded. And honestly, it won't hurt if you all make your bottoms much more rounded than you ever thought they were. And in this case, this cup, the handle is just a little way down, and then it comes almost to the bottom. It's got quite a thick little ear hole there. So terribly important to get those shapes right. And again, look, that curve there, that distance there is not very deep. It's going to be much shallower than you thought. And you can put these scaffolding lines in, that's perfectly all right. You can hold your pencil up and check all these curves here and here. Make sure these are even. Have a look at this shape here. Have a look at this shape here. And that's how you draw the basics. Okay, that's lesson 1 over.